This is Scout with the Panthers Report. I am joined here with Echo from Twitter. I met him on Twitter a long time ago. Echo, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Echo. I also go by Nick. Call me whatever though. I'm a Jets fan. I've watched this team my whole life. Suffered a lot because of a lot of losing seasons, especially this past decade, and watched someone I thought was a franchise quarterback get shipped out. But we'll get into that later. So, what you got for me, Scout?
First, we're going to talk about Sam Darnold and what you thought of the trade as soon as it happened when you saw it pop up.
So, as a Jets fan, I had mixed feelings. Like, I'm cool. I'm cool. I was cool with getting rid of Sam because ultimately it makes sense, right? Reset the contract, but at the same time, I felt like he really got the short end of the stick. I mean, you look at his rookie season stats, he had 17 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. I know it doesn't wow you, but you look at the talent around him. His best receiver was Robbie Anderson, and ultimately his coaching staff then was subpar, and then his second and third year they were even more subpar. We brought in Adam Gase, who ultimately was a complete disaster and failure for us. I mean, he drove Jamal Adams out of town. Players didn't really want to play for him. He wasn't the right coach for our team, not at all. He had this egotistical mindset where he thought, oh, I was Peyton Manning's offensive coordinator. I have a great offensive mind. No adaptation. I mean, the dude never ran motion, which motion is a common thing in like today's NFL. So I think that the trade for you guys, as of now, obviously it looks like we won the trade because a two, a four, and a six is a lot of value for Sam Darnold. Some people said it was an overpay, but I think that Sam Darnold with Joe Brady has the potential to finally become that NFL good tier quarterback. I don't think he'll become an elite quarterback. I mean, I'm not ruling things out though because Sam Darnold has a huge chip on his shoulder. But now that he finally has the quote unquote offensive genius that he was promised with the Jets at the Panthers with Joe Brady, I think he could really turn the table and just ball out for you guys.
I've watched Sam Darnold play for the Jets when he was on the Jets, and I don't know if it was the receiving core or not, but I don't know what to expect when I see him play on the Panthers because it didn't seem like he was like I don't know how to describe it, like one of the elites, if that makes sense. But hopefully the new receiving core he has with the Panthers, and hopefully better line if we decide to draft O line, will allow him to play better and have more time in the pocket so he can make better throws rather than having to run and make crazy throws on the run. Hopefully that changes things.
I think it will, because ultimately with the Jets, Sam, I mean, this year his offensive line wasn't horrible, right? I mean, he had Big Mackay back then. George Fant played all right. The interior wasn't great. I mean, Pat Elflein, he was really just a good run blocker. That was about it. But really, the problem with the Jets, I think he had some receiver talent. I mean, this year it was kind of a mess at the start. His top three receivers only played like I think 3 or 4 games together, right? Denzel Mims, Jamison Crowder, and Brashad Perriman. Those were the top three, and they didn't play a game together until like week 8 or 9 of the season. And Sam Darnold was out those weeks, so that was kind of tough. But also the O line wasn't great outside of I'd say Mackay. George Fan had some good games, but the line he never really had a great line. His receivers were subpar. I mean, he threw to Chris Hogan and Braxton Berrios a good chunk of the year, so that obviously is not good at all. And on top of that, excuse the vacuum if you could hear that, but on top of that, he really just was not given, like I said, a good coaching staff that I think you guys have now in Carolina. Adam Gase was brought in to develop Sam Darnold. And you look at guys Adam Gase coached. I mean, the clear cut example is Ryan Tannehill down in Tennessee. Ryan Tannehill, he was solid, all right, under Gase, but eventually the Dolphins moved on thinking, all right, Tannehill's, he's reached his ceiling. He's not a good quarterback. Now you look at Tannehill, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the game. So, and he was like 29 when he got traded. Darnold's only 23, going to be 24 in June. So he has a lot that I think he could reach with you guys in terms of potential.
My biggest question is if he can outperform Teddy Bridgewater, because last year watching Teddy Bridgewater pissed me off so much, including the fact that he had, I think it was 8 game-winning potential game-winning drives. He had 8 of them, and he got 0 of those. He either threw a pick, fumbled, and then that one play at the 1 yard line where he decided to jump and try to put the ball over the line and got punched, and then they returned it almost all the way for a touchdown. It's terrible. I would just hope that Sam Darnold plays a lot better than Teddy did last year.
So, regarding Teddy Bridgewater, the good news is Sam Darnold already has a history of beating out Teddy Bridgewater in quarterback competitions, right? I mean, his rookie year, him, Teddy, and Josh McCown were on the same team. Teddy was brought in as a free agent, and Sam Darnold was given the keys kind of right off the bat. But nonetheless, you could also see it as Teddy could not beat Sam Darnold in a quarterback competition, which is why he got shipped out. I think the Jets also just wanted some value, but you know, it that tells you one thing. That's clearly that, Sam I think has a lot. Sam is better than Teddy, and I also think that he has a better arm than Teddy. I think that's kind of without a doubt. Teddy maybe out the draft had a really good arm, but obviously he hasn't really had a chance to become that NFL quarterback people thought he would become because of that gruesome injury. And with you guys trading all those assets for Sam, I really don't think Teddy is going to get his chance with you guys, at least, because even as a backup, because he's getting paid so much and they're quarterback needy teams. I mean, his value I could see being between like tops a third, maybe a 4 or 5. So, and regarding game-winning drives and comebacks, Sam didn't have any this year, but obviously that could be attributed to the team around him. Not, I mean, Frank Gore was his running back, not great receivers, but his rookie season, he had one game-winning drive, one fourth quarter comeback, and then 2019, where he went 7-6 as a starter, he had two fourth quarter comebacks and three game-winning drives, and ultimately he really shined. I think the first year he showed towards the last 4 games he was a baller. The second year, I think you really saw a lot of the rookie mistakes still out at Sam because he never got developed by Gase, and the third year was really just people taking advantage of those rookie mistakes, because he never was able to develop really under Gase.
I honestly hope, or at least at least I hope that the Panthers either ship Teddy out before the draft or after the draft, because if we get Sam Darnold and then we draft another quarterback and then we keep Teddy that we're paying that much money for, I just think all those isn't really necessary. So I really hope we either trade Teddy or release him. But the problem with releasing him is that we would get, I think it's 20 million in dead cap space, which is terrible. And so I honestly hope we were able to trade him because that 20 million dead cap would be terrible.
So I think a trade is more likely than anything. I mean, you can release a guy and hope that the dead cap doesn't really affect him because you guys only signed him to a 3-year deal, and I know 20 million in dead cap is bad, but it'll be spread out only over like 2 years, right? So in reality, after 2 years, you won't have to worry about any of that dead cap, right? So I don't think it would be that bad if you release him. Obviously, you want to get some sort of value. I think a trade during the draft is what's going to happen. I would be surprised to see him get traded before the draft because ultimately some teams like maybe Denver, right, are hoping that they'll be able to pick up one of the top quarterbacks. But being realistic, quarterbacks can fly in the top 6, right? Trade like there's a legitimate theory that four quarterbacks could be taken with the top four picks, right? If Atlanta either takes a guy or they trade down. Um, so I think, and regarding you guys drafting a quarterback, although I'm not gonna rule it out, I highly like. I think the only way you draft a guy, I'm not saying Sam Darnold is better than the dudes in the draft, but you guys gave up a 2, a 4, and a 6 for him, right? That's a lot of assets and values, and you guys kind of committed to him by giving that up, right? So I feel like the only time you draft a guy at pick 8 is if somehow like Trevor Lawrence falls, right? I think Justin Fields will be good, and yes, he could be better than Sam, but you guys gave up all those assets for a dude who only has what 1 or 2 years left on his contract. That depends on if you pick up the fifth year option or not. So who knows?
Okay, next we can talk about the well, we already started talking about it, but the NFL draft coming up. So I'm currently mixed emotions in what I want the Panthers to do because we can either draft all offense and finish up our O line and then get better weapons. That way we can be like an unstoppable offense, or we could go the defense route and because defense wins championships at the end of the day and make our defense really good. That way, even if our offense is like subpar or average at best, then at least we can have a great defense, and then it can get us good field position and score easily. Or we could do a mix of both, where we draft like O line and then defense, but then you're hoping that good defensive players are still there after you draft your offensive players. So I just don't know what I would want the Panthers to do, and I guess we'll find out next week what they decide to do.
So obviously, I'm not the GM. I'm not your head coach, but I can tell you what I think they should do. I think that with their first pick, they should target a guy like Rashawn Slater on the line because he reminds me a lot of a Tristan Wirfs. Not because I'm not saying he'll be Tristan Wirfs, but his flexibility. He could play tackle, guard, even center, and he's a beast. He may only be 6'3". I think he measured at 6'4". I could be wrong, but the dude has a lot of talent. Out of Northwestern, they got blown out by like Ohio State one game, 52-0, but Slater held Chase Young to 0 sacks, which that's saying something because Chase Young obviously we saw what he could do this year in the NFL and what he's going to be in the NFL. We know what he was in college. So the fact that he held him to 0 says definitely a lot. I also think you guys could go corner, even though you guys signed AJ Bouye. I just don't think I don't think it's as big of a need now that you signed Bouye. But if you really like a guy like Surtain or Horn, it definitely makes sense. Now, quarterbacks. I don't know, like, realistically, could a guy fall to you? Yes, but I think there's gonna be there could be a trade up. I mean, the Dolphins already talked about a potential trade up again, even though it's weird because they traded down, then they traded back up. So that's a potential thing that could happen. And Detroit even could trade down. I know they're a team that's projected to take like a receiver because they got Goff. They could also take a quarterback too, though. So who knows what they do? Um, you got some people are saying you guys will take a receiver. I doubt it. I think receivers some you'll address in round 2 or 3 because that's where the slot guys are more projected to go, right? Because you already have your outside receivers in Moore and Anderson. I know Moore plays a bit of the slot. DJ Moore, that is, not David Moore. David Moore is another guy on the outside. So a slot receiver I could see you guys address in the second round. You could also address O line there too. There's definitely a lot of good interior offensive linemen. Um, I know guys like what's his name out of I can't. I'm blanking out, but the dude out of Purdue, he's gonna be really good in the slot. Rondale Moore, that's his name. Rondale Moore could be. He's kind. I wouldn't say he's kind of like Curtis Samuel, but he's like a gadget type of dude, right? And he's gonna be a slot guy. I mean, I think Joe Brady having Rondale Moore in his offense, that could be dangerous, right? And also you got linemen like Wyatt Davis, Trey Hill out of Georgia, Creed Humphrey out of Oklahoma. He's a center, but who knows what you guys go, because you guys both need, outside of Taylor Moden, you guys kind of need O line everywhere, right? I mean, you did sign Pat Elflein, so you'd assume that guard position would be filled, but who knows? Um, but a trade down is also possible for you guys. I don't know where you trade down. I mean, I think that happens if a quarterback slides, you trade down. Maybe with Denver even, because I know they're one pick behind you, but who knows? You could pick up maybe an extra third by moving down a spot. I don't think that would hurt, especially considering you traded a 2, 4, and 6. I mean, you guys are going to want to pick up some more picks and get that asset return. I mean, you're hoping Sam Darnold is worth that, obviously, but if he's not, it's always good to trade down and pick up some more assets as well. So that's what I think will happen in the draft.
One receiver that I was looking at for the Panthers that I think could help, not necessarily replace, but fill in Curtis Samuel's spot is I would say Devontae Smith from Bama. I watched him a lot throughout college, and he would go off in like a lot of the games I watched. And I personally think if we drafted him, that wouldn't be a bad pickup because we do need a third receiver, and I feel like he could fit in the offense with his versatility.
So I think Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle, his teammate, both make sense for you guys. And if you do trade down, say a team wants to get a quarterback, right? Say one falls to 8, and one of them are there. I think it definitely makes some sense because you do have a somewhat glaring need at slot, right? I mean, yes, DJ Moore could play it, and you could throw David Moore on the outside, but I think it would be smarter to pick up a receiver in one of the top 2, 3 rounds. Um, I think Devontae Smith makes sense if you guys want a more route runner guy, which I think it does make sense because you do have two speedsters in DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, and then Jalen Waddle makes sense if you kind of want someone a bit more like Curtis Samuel with that speed. I mean, Jalen Waddle is extremely fast, and I think both of them definitely have their similarities. Both of them could play the slot. Um, Devonta Smith obviously can play both the outside and slot, so he gives you that versatility, like you said, fitting in that offense. I think either of them would be a good pickup.
And then for corner, I know we do need another corner. I just don't know who the Panthers should target specifically because we do need corner, and I would say it's a big need. Because even though we got AJ Boye, we would still need to draft another one because we don't have like great corners. Like we have a few good corners, but we still need, I think, at least one more corner.
So you have Bouye and what's his name? I can't think of his name. Who's the dude you uh
Dante Jackson,
Jackson? Yeah,
Dante
Dante
Jackson.
Jackson. That's who I'm thinking of. So you and Dante Jackson, he's a solid guy, but I think that definitely corner makes sense. Now, I don't know if it's something you address in round one, though, like I said, because this draft, I'm not saying it's extremely deep at corner, right? But you definitely have options like Tyson Campbell in the second round. Aaron Robinson will probably be in the second round too out of Central Florida. I mean, there's a lot of options. Like, that's the thing. The good news is all your needs there's options everywhere. So you could trade down, right, and fill your needs still. So that's the big thing. And I think getting Sam Darnold, he might not. I mean, he could be a great quarterback for you guys. He could not, right? Ultimately, there's quarterbacks every draft. It feels like though, so I wouldn't concern it. And I think he still does have a lot of potential in him. But missing out on a quarterback and trading down will allow you to fill in those needs a lot easily, right? Because like I said, you got corners, you got receivers, you got linemen. good, and I'm not just saying, below average guys. You got good guys who are going to be available late first round, early second round. So that's also why a trade down makes sense. Um, Now, if you were to take one in the first round, which I don't think you should do because you have Dante Jackson, you have what's his name, AJ Bouye. So yes, JC Horn or Sertain would be really good for you guys in the first round. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think that it's that much of a need for you guys compared to O line or receiver, right?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because, like you said, we do have two starting corners. But the reason I brought up AJ Boye is because he's going to miss the first 2 games of the season with a suspension for violating the NFL's performance enhancing drugs policy. And so
Mm.
that's why I think we need to get a pretty good corner to hold his place because he's going to miss the first 2 games, and I don't want to just lose the first 2 games because we don't have like great corners to stop other teams' receivers.
Well, that's another big thing. The schedule release. You don't know. I mean, I'd hope you guys kind of get a good a good schedule where the first 2 games you're facing receiver poor teams. I mean, there's good receivers on about every team, don't get me wrong. But obviously, like, you don't want to face the Falcons where they have Julio and Calvin Ridley, right? Because that would be bad with no Bouye to at least guard one of them. But I get the logic behind it. I mean, I still think that second round makes a lot of sense. And obviously with the 17 game season this year, losing 2 games, it's still not great. You obviously want to win as many games as you can, but it's a lot more feasible than in a 16 game season where starting off 0 and 2 can really hurt you guys. Now, if you guys were to, I still don't think like 2 games justifies taking one in the first round. But say you trade down, right, and you go to like, I don't know, pick 17, 18, and Horn or Sertain are there. I could understand that because that's extremely good value at those picks. So
The next thing I wanted to bring up is one, the upcoming season. Well, actually, yeah, mainly the upcoming season coming up and how things will play out because I know it does depend on where we go in the draft and how things go. But just like generally, like with Darnold, I actually don't know what to expect with Darnold, and I don't want to get my hopes up thinking he's gonna go like 13-4 with the 17 game season. So I just don't know realistically what I should expect with the upcoming season.
so I'm not gonna guarantee you the Super Bowl. I'm not gonna guarantee you a late playoff run. But what I can say is, obviously, I think it's clear cut that there's no way you're winning the division, right? I mean, I'm not gonna rule it out 100%, but with the Buccaneers in that division, obviously it's kind of their division. Plus, the Saints still, even though they lost a lot of guys, they still could be a really good team. I mean, we don't know what to expect out of Jameis Winston, Say, and then with the Falcons, we also don't know what to see out of them either. But what I do know about you guys is you guys are a real dark horse candidate to make the playoffs. I could see you guys making it as not a not a high seed, but just sneaking in there. I could realistically see happening at like a 9-8, um, maybe 10-7. I don't think any higher than that is gonna happen, but it really depends on Darnold's development. I think a lot lies on his shoulders. Listen, Jordan Palmer, his quarterbacks coach, has said he works really hard with him in the offseason. And Jordan Palmer is a guy who works with Josh Allen as well, which that might give you some hope too. But also, you got to consider Darnold finally has the right coaching staff around him. So I think things at the start of the year might be a little slow in general, right? With him, like he still might need some time. I don't think to learn the offense, but to just get comfortable, right? Obviously, he's familiar with Robbie Anderson, but none of the other guys he really has built that connection with, right? So I think it'll take a little bit for him to get comfortable, but when he gets hot and he gets on like a roll, I think he could lead you guys realistically maybe to a late season run that could sneak you guys into the playoffs. Now, I'm not guaranteeing it, but I think it definitely is feasible and it makes sense. I mean, he led the Jets to 7-6 in 2019, and the Jets without him were 0-3. I think the Jets without him his whole career was 0-10. I could be wrong. It was something like that. So clearly, I mean, the Jets didn't have a great backup. Don't get me wrong, but we couldn't win without him. He's won NFL games, right? He's proven that he can be a starting quarterback in this league, maybe even better. Um, so I think obviously I'm not a genie. I can't tell the future, but I think that there's definitely a shot he could lead you guys into the playoffs. And if this experiment doesn't work out, yes, you guys gave up some good value for him, but you guys can, I think next year's class for quarterbacks, right? It definitely makes sense too. Now, I'm not going to say it's a lock next year you guys take a quarterback cuz I'm hoping Sam Darnold works out for you guys, right? I mean, I think he will if everything just works, if he's shown that he's willing to work. So he's gonna put in that work, put in the hours that he needs to become that quarterback for you guys. I know that. But say it doesn't work, you have guys like Tyler Show out of Texas Tech, Sam Howell out of North Carolina, or Kadon Slovis out of USC. So it's like there's definitely quarterback talent next year to be excited about, and maybe even Matt Corral out of Ole Miss. So who knows what happens? I mean, that's always the backup plan, right? If it doesn't work out, you draft a guy the next year. I think right now it's more about building up the team so either Sam can succeed or the next guy can succeed, right? I think that's really the clear goal of Carolina right now to just build that core foundation. So,
So at the end of the day, you think that will end up as a either a wild card or like just missing the playoffs based on what you were saying about like the fact that the Buccaneers and the Saints might run away with the division?
yeah, so obviously the Saints, we don't know what will happen with Jameis Winston. For all we know, they could be second in the division or they could end up last, right? I think so. I either see you guys ending up second or third in the division, for sure. I think that fourth, I would be really surprised. What I do know is that that would probably happen because of like injuries or something. I mean, but I really don't see you guys losing a lot of like games by double digits or multiple scores because I think Matt Rule, I mean the Jets almost hired him. Even though it's like unrelated kind of, but he he's shown throughout college, throughout the NFL, throughout anywhere he's been, his players play hard for him, right? And Joe Brady has shown that his offense translates to the NFL, right? I mean, you look at Joe Burrow, he's a baller. And that's a dude Joe Brady coached up, right? Joe Burrow was not even expected to be taken in the first round, regardless first pick before that monster senior season he had. So I think that ultimately losing a lot of games would really, really surprise me. I mean, you guys would just, I don't see it happening unless just injuries come in and decimate your year.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think we probably will, like you said, it'll be either single digit score or we end up winning the games. Um, I just hope like when it comes down to crunch time that Sam Darnold can lead down a team and score. Like let's say a 2 minute drill, we need a touchdown to either tie or win the game. I just hope that he's able to do that like consistently rather than Teddy who had 8 chances last year and didn't complete a single one of them. So I'm
I
just
mean,
hoping that Sam Darnold can step up to the plate.
the one thing I can tell you is that I'll never forget tuning into like a Panthers game, right? And seeing you guys elect to kick I think it was like a 64-yard field goal or something like that, right? might have been even longer, just because you didn't trust Teddy's arm that much. Like, I don't think you'll have that same problem with Sam Darnold. I highly doubt it because ultimately Sam Darnold does have a better arm. I think accuracy, you could debate that. I think his mechanics are going to be coached up though by Joe Brady, so I'd expect better accuracy out of Sam. But one thing I'll tell you is that Sam Darnold, no, that this is no shot at Teddy. I think Teddy's a hard fighter too, but Sam Darnold is a warrior, and he's a guy who could throw interception after interception and will still go out and try to lead his team to a victory, right? So I think that that's the big difference between him and Teddy. Not that Teddy's not a warrior, but Teddy doesn't have the exact same confidence Sam does in himself. So I think obviously both of them have a certain level, but I think Sam just is more confident in himself towards those end of game, late game situations. I mean, he's shown he could do it with the Jets, and that's with less talent than you guys. So I'd hope he could do it with you guys.
I definitely think he will be able to do it with us, especially with our talent versus the Jets' talent that they had at receiver. That plus McCaffrey coming back, I think that will be another key piece to help Donald because McCaffrey can line up a receiver, play running back, pretty much do anything on offense. So I think that'll help him out a lot.
It's kind of funny because I mean, comparing you guys what we gave Sam to what you guys are giving him now, there's a lot of similarities, right? We signed Le'Veon Bell to be that versatile running back that could give him a weapon at receiver, a good running game, right? And that's kind of what McCaffrey's giving him now. We got Adam Gase to be that offensive genius for him to develop him, and that's kind of what you guys are finally giving him in Joe Brady. And I just think that with you guys, he's finally getting the opportunity he kind of deserved, you know?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because especially with Adam Gase, I don't think he was given anywhere near what he actually deserved on a team, and I think the Panthers give him a better opportunity. But also speaking of Joe Brady, I'm kind of afraid that he might leave after the season because after last season he was interviewing with other teams to be a head coach, and um, no one's really sure on what he might decide to do. But there's a possibility that at the end of the season he could possibly leave to go to another team to be a head coach.
So I think that honestly, that's really likely because obviously we've all seen Joe Brady. He's a really, really smart. I mean, dude is he's getting comparisons to McVay and LaFleur and all these smart, and it makes sense, right? They're well deserved. So who could replace him? I mean, one of you guys just left for LSU, your quarterback's coach. So I think that is a very good chance that that guy can replace him. I can't think of his name. Hold on. I'll tell you his name right now. Let me just pull up the staff. Jake Peets. So he's the offensive coordinator at LSU. So you guys might take him. Or Sean Ryan, who's your current quarterback's coach now. He was the Lions quarterback's coach last year. Served as the Texans QB coach during Deshaun Watson. He's been an NFL coach for quite a bit. I know that when the Jets won to hire Matt Rule, Matt Rule wanted Sean Ryan to be his offensive coordinator, which is kind of why we shied away from Matt Rule because we didn't really think Sean Ryan could be one. That's no disrespect to Sean Ryan. I think he probably could, and I think he probably would do a better job than Adam Gase. I'd at least hope so. But you know, I think either Sean Ryan or Jake Peets makes sense as a replacement for Joe Brady, if I had to name some. You also have a lot of other guys on your coaching staff that do make sense as well, but definitely Sean Ryan, Jake Peets. Those are the two guys I'd watch out for.
And then one closing, we can close with this. I just got a notification on Twitter that the Panthers are very open to moving back from the number 8 pick in the first round. So I'm guessing that's most likely going to happen in the draft.
Yep, and I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Like I was talking about it before,